back, everybody, to week 11 of the wrap-up. This is the West Georgia Gridiron Podcast. This is Monday. We're recapping all of Friday night's games for you. Had everybody but Carrollton, I believe, playing last week. So we want to jump into it this week with 100 straight losses, Mason. This is part of our what to what section. 100. How do you do 100 straight losses?
Suck really bad.
Yeah, this was Bama Preps. Our buddy Vlad over in Alabama posted this at Bama Preps. 61-22 loss over Jasper. Columbia High School has now lost 100 games in a row. What about this guy right here, man? This officiating crew right here, permanently suspended. This was the Georgia-Auburn game, very controversial. Out of 11 complaints, they found out that the legal office found out that 9 of those were actually legit. So they were permanently suspended, and that's Ken Williamson, who recently officiated that game. And, some people thought that maybe Kirby didn't have a leg to stand on with that complaint, but there were enough that they looked into it, and it was all legit. We don't want you to forget about our state playoffs live podcast show. That's the Who's In show, special live recording of our episode, and then also a Teen Spirit Night. So come out, wear your fan wear. We'll see who's in. Hopefully all of our teams will make it in, but we'll find out on Monday, November 3rd at 6:30 to 8 o'clock. Come out. There'll be no reserve tables, just general public admission. And come out and support Buffalo Wild Wings. Come out and support your local high school that'll be in the playoffs. Enjoy some good food, good sports, good friends. And that's a Buffalo Wild Wings here in Carrollton. And then, Mason, let's get into it. This week we're going to start with Bowdon Red Devils, Greenville Patriots.
Yeah, winning's always nice, but doing so behind a season-high score is obviously even better. Bowden blew past the Greenville Patriots, posting a 68-14 victory. The win continues a trend for the Red Devils in their matchups with the Patriots because they're now 12-0 against Greenville all time. Bowden got their victory on the backs of several key players, but it's senior quarterback Joshua Hopkins. We seem to every week be calling his name out. Joshua Hopkins. He threw for 212 yards, 6 touchdowns on only 13 passes. Those 6 passing touchdowns gave him a new career high. We also had junior athlete Connor Daniel, who we seem to be talking a lot about as well this season. He was another key player. He gained 118 total yards and also accounted for 3 touchdowns. Bowden, they now sit at 7-2 this season. For Greenville, they are now on a 5-game losing streak that has dropped them down to 3-6. And if you're Mount Zion, that worries you a lot, and I'll explain that later on in the episode. But Bowden, they're going to be taking on their rival Tryon, the Tryon Bulldogs, on Friday. It'll be their last regular season game of the year. With a win, Bowden would clinch the region championship for good. That contest is going to pit 2 of the most dominant signal callers against one another. For Bowden, obviously Joshua Hopkins. For Tryon, it's going to be Link Allen. But for Greenville, they're going to be taking on their familiar foe, Manchester, on Friday. Huge playoff implications on the line there, and we're going to talk about that later on. But that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. And for Bowden, very similar. A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, that week 1 loss when they got blown out by Fellowship Christian was bizarre. Then you had that 1-point loss when they had to lead the entire game against Heard County on the road, ended up losing by 1 point. But for Bowden, to be honest with you, so far this season, this Bowden team, to me, is very reminiscent of last year. I don't think there's really much of a difference from that team last year. Last year, coming into Week 10, they had the same record. Week 12, they had the same record of 7-2. So I don't necessarily know what's too different about the team this year and last year in terms of how they've done this so far this season. But obviously, Bowden going in there, didn't expect Greenville did about what I thought, maybe got 1 more score than I had imagined. But Bowden, they scored probably about 20 more points than I thought that they would. Bowden showing absolutely no mercy on the road.
That's right. When we head over to Central Lions and Griffin Bears, we were at this game in Griffin.
Yeah, this was the region championship down there in 4A for Central, and they strolled into this game with a perfect record, and they left the exact same way. They really took it to Griffin for the full 4 quarters. They racked up a 56-21 final score. But this contest, if I'm being honest, was pretty much decided by the half. It was 28-0 Central at the half. And on the sideline, kind of joked around, maybe this was going to be a Jonesboro game where Central starts out hot, 14-0. It was actually 14-7 at the half because Jonesboro got a late second half touchdown. And then we saw Jonesboro score 10 points in the third quarter, 10 unanswered points to take the lead. And then, or maybe it was 14 unanswered points. I can't quite remember. Yeah, 14 unanswered points in the third quarter. And then that set up Central having to score 10 unanswered points in the fourth quarter to win the game. We kind of joked around on the sideline. Maybe that was going to be another Jonesboro situation. No. They scored 4 touchdowns in the first half, never looked back. Obviously, they still gave up 21 points to Griffin. And honestly, Griffin offensively did about what I thought they would have done. But Central definitely, I think Griffin's defense definitely underperformed. I didn't think that Griffin was going to give up, 56 points. I had them, I think, around 30. I think my score prediction was 38-21. But Central really blew the doors off of this one. It was impressive from start to finish. Defense was fast. Offense was efficient. Really cannot complain about that victory for Central. And it, to be on the news, Fox 5 News after the game, being interviewed and getting a trophy. I mean, it's just, that's what you want. But it's like Coach Brown says, they're going for that state championship trophy. This region championship is just one of the 2 trophies they're aiming for this season. And obviously they're now 9-0 for only the 7th time in their school history. And it's actually the 2nd time they've done it under Coach Brown. So the 2nd time in 3 seasons, because it's only his 3rd season there. So obviously when you see that, you've only been 9-0 7 times, and 2 of those 7 times were under the same coach in the span of 3 years. That's a great sign for Central as they head into their homecoming week and week 10 against Northside Columbus. For Griffin, they're 6-3, and actually that loss ended their 6-game winning streak. So for Griffin, something they haven't experienced in a minute. But Central, obviously, like I just mentioned, they're going to be at homecoming at home. Week 12, final game of the regular season against Northside Columbus. Central comes into it ranked 27th in the state. Northside is ranked 268th in the state. So Central obviously feeling pretty good about that game. For Griffin, they're 114th in the state. They're going to be taking on Mundy's Mill, who's 332nd in the state. Obviously, Griffin's not going to be much of a worry for Central unless they were to meet in the state championship game. But for Central, obviously, coming into week 12, you could not have planned this out any better. And to be honest with you, Coach Brown's first season, when they went 12-1 and went 10-0 for the regular season, they ended up losing in the quarterfinals just barely to Stars Mill. To be honest with you, I think this team this year is better than that team from that year. And I know that might turn some heads. We'll see how they do in the playoffs, but I think that this team this year would beat that team. And it just goes to show what Coach Brown's building there at Central. Very impressed with Central. But we'll see what they have in store for homecoming. Obviously, I think it will probably be a blowout win. I think they're thinking that as well. But I think they're getting ready for playoffs as they're going to be awaiting who they have to play first round. And as of right now, I believe it's going to be Tucker. But again, a great road victory for Central. Really blew the doors off of Griffin. And if anyone had any doubt of what Central was made of, they made sure to erase that out of their minds.
Yeah, thank you to Chuck Robinson, the athletic director at Central, and Coach Brown for allowing us to be on the sidelines. We were able to celebrate with the team and just kind of listen in on his speech and be with the parents and those that were supporters of the team on the field afterwards as they presented the trophy for the region win. This was Griffin's homecoming, and they honored the great Willie Galt, who played at Griffin and also played for the Chicago Bears, and a couple others, former NFL players that they honored, but found out that they have produced more NFL players from Griffin than any other team in Georgia history. So that was pretty cool to be a part of. And then Bremen goes to Haralson County.
Yeah, what does Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz say? There's no place like home. And that was so true for Haralson County as it was their senior night, and they got the win. Bounced back after their road loss against Pepperell the week before. Obviously walked out of this one with a 34-26 victory over their rival, the Bremen Blue Devils. And the year before, last year, Bremen beat Haralson County 42-0. So sweet revenge for the Rebels as they walked out of their home stadium victors for the first time over Bremen since 2022. And Bremen still leads this series all time 21-11, but obviously Haralson County for a whole year is going to have bragging rights because they just beat them for the first time in 3 years. So senior quarterback for Haralson County, Paxton Ray, again, outrageously good. We've been talking about him the past few weeks as well. He's kind of emerging for Haralson County in the latter weeks heading into the playoffs. But for Paxton Ray, had 178 rushing yards, 3 scores. He also picked up 7.1 yards per carry, threw for 137 yards and 1 touchdown on only 6 passes. Another player that was making a difference was junior wide receiver Colton Hudson. He picked up 105 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. And Paxton Ray was just one part of a very punishing run game for Haralson County. They were unstoppable on the ground, finished the game with 246 rushing yards. They were easily outclassed. They easily outclassed their opponents in that department because Bremen only rushed for 47 yards. So Bremen just absolutely shut down offensively. Haralson County also did not go easy on the quarterback. They had 2 interceptions. Both of those interceptions came courtesy of senior defensive back Matthew Hudson. So congratulations to him on those very 2 important turnovers. But Haralson County obviously been on a roll. They've won 3 of their last 4 games. That's provided a very nice bump to their 7-3 record this season. The win came in thanks partly to their offensive performance across that stretch. They averaged 33.3 points over those games. But for Bremen, they're on a 3-game losing streak, and that has dropped them down to 4-5 on the season. Obviously, for Haralson County now, they're done. They finished last year 1-9. Now they finished the regular season 7-3. Coach Crutchfield turning things around there at Haralson County. But for now, Haralson County, they have 2 weeks as they await the first round of the playoffs. And I'm going to go ahead and say they're going to get in. I do think they will get in. But as of right now, they have a bye week this week. And then obviously they have the week before the playoffs. So Haralson County just kind of sitting and waiting, trying to stay sharp. And that can kind of get dangerous. You haven't been playing. You kind of maybe get a little rusty. So obviously Haralson County going to try their very best to not get that way. Obviously you get 2 weeks to rest. That's very good for your team, especially when you're heading into the playoffs. But again, not staying sharp. Got to be able to avoid that. Avoid getting rusty. But for Bremen, they're going to be taking on Darlington on Friday. The Blue Devils will be up against the Tigers' rather soft defense. They have allowed 40.2 points per game this season. So Bremen, I would prepare for a pretty good offensive game there against Darlington, as you're hoping to end the season, the regular season at least 5-5. But yeah, Haralson County going up or hosting the Bremen Blue Devils and getting a very much needed win and a very good looking win, I would say.
Yeah. And then Model took on Heard County Braves.
Yeah, this game, Model actually scored a lot more than I thought they would. Only had Model scoring 10 points. They ended up scoring 28. So I don't know.
Some mercy points on Heard County Braves?
Maybe. It was Heard County's homecoming. So I'm sure Heard County wasn't too worried about losing. They were worried about losing this game and partly just because it's homecoming. But when you're playing Model, I'll talk about their record in a minute. Obviously, nobody's worried about playing Model. So Heard County, I think, mainly just kind of relaxing on that in this game. Obviously, still scored 54 points, which is actually more than I thought that they would score. But they did give up a little bit more than I had anticipated. Heard County leads this series all-time 2-0 now. But again, another team that is still perfect after the season, it's the Heard County Braves. They are now 9-0 on the season, I believe, for only the 4th time in school history, and it's actually the first time they're 9-0 since 2012. So it's been 13 years since they've been this good or had a record this good. But Heard County, they're 96th in the state. Model's only 377th. So again, Heard County, not probably coming into this game real worried that they're going to lose it. A big part of this victory was obviously the chemistry between junior quarterback Ethan Tisdale and his top target, junior running back Darius Coleman. Tisdale, he threw for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, completed 84% of his passes. Darius Coleman, he rushed for 79 yards. He also had gotten the end zone 3 times on only 7 carries. Tisdale also racked up a 159.4 passer rating. It's actually the most he's had since back in August in week 1 against Clarkson. So the best performance from him since early this season. The team also got some help courtesy of junior wide receiver Brody Buck Cofield. He picked up 42 receiving yards and a pair of touchdowns. On special teams, they accounted for 12 points in this game. The biggest highlight of that would be junior athlete Trip Kerbo running back a punt for a touchdown, so congratulations to him. And Heard County also had 7 sacks in this game. Doing the heavy lifting, though, was senior defensive lineman Max Lassiter and also junior linebacker Justin Hansen. They both had, between the two, they had 5 sacks, 5 of those 7. So they were in the backfield all night long. Obviously, like I just said, Heard County 9-0 for only the 4th time in school history, first time in over a decade. For Model, again, they're on a 6-game losing streak, and they're 1-8 on the season. They are the worst team in that region. I don't think they have a region win. After tonight, I think they're the only team in that region not have a win because we're going to talk about it later. Temple got a win. So Model not looking good this season. And obviously, when we went to watch them play Bremen, you could tell then that they weren't a very good team. And that's no shame on Model. You have your ups and downs, but Heard County just taking care of business. But still, I can't believe Heard County. I mean, not trying to bash them or anything. I can't believe Heard County gave up 4 touchdowns to that team. I mean, we watched them play Bremen. Bremen gave up 1 touchdown, and that's just in a garbage time of the game, fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter. So maybe, I guess Heard County was playing relaxed. Maybe they had their freshmen in early or their JV team, but if they had their starters in giving up 4 touchdowns, either that Model team has improved drastically or that Heard County team was really just not trying. But yeah, Heard County getting a homecoming win.
Well, good thing you think that Model's concessions are just awesome.
I do not.
All right, and then the Mount Zion Eagles and Manchester Blue Devils.
Yeah, this was disappointing. Manchester does lead this series now all-time 4-1. They've won the last 3 meetings, including this game.
I think they've got their number, Mason.
I had Mount Zion winning this one 27-24, so only by 3 points. Manchester did win this one, obviously. You see there 36-28. Yeah, Manchester the past few years, I mean, there's no shame in losing to them in the past few years because they've been state championship caliber teams. This year, Manchester's nothing close to a state championship caliber team, so Mount Zion losing is disappointing. But to be honest, they've had a strong season, but Mount Zion, their luck has taken a bit of a downturn recently. Obviously, they got this loss the week before, 2 weeks before this. They lost to Bowden, which again, no shame in losing to Bowden. But last year it was 48-14 Manchester. Obviously, this time around a lot closer than that. But again, I had Mount Zion winning this game. I'm a little disappointed they lost, and I know for Mount Zion, this does not help their playoffs implications. I'll explain that in a minute. Mount Zion, they finished the regular season now 7-3. Just like Haralson County, they have a bye week, and then they have the week before playoffs, so they're going to also need to try and stay sharp, but they're going to be paying close attention this Friday because big implications from those 2 games. There's 2 region games for Bowden Tryon and then Manchester Greenville. For Manchester, that was their first victory in region play. They're now 3-5 on the year. They're 1-2 in region play. Obviously, like I said, Mount Zion done for the season. Manchester, they're going to be playing against Greenville on Friday. The Blue Devils of Manchester, they're going to be up against a Patriots team who has a rather soft defense. Just asked Bowden, who they just gave up 68 points to Bowden, giving up 35.9 points per game this season. So for Manchester, and you see that as Mount Zion, that's very worrying because for Mount Zion, best case scenario right now for them for the playoffs, they need Bowden to win on Friday, which is most likely going to happen, and then they need Greenville to win. And that's where that's where we kind of snag a little bit because if Greenville beats Manchester, Manchester misses the playoffs, Greenville will be the 4 seed, Tryon will likely be the 3 seed, and that means that Mount Zion will be the 2 seed, and that means Mount Zion will be able to host first round. Now, if Greenville loses to Manchester, Manchester makes the playoffs, Greenville misses, and then if that happens, and then obviously Tryon's most likely going to lose, then that means that Bowden will be first, undisputed, region champions. No one's going to dispute that. Greenville will be dead last, undisputed. But then you'll have a 3-way tie between Tryon, Manchester, and Mount Zion. And the thing that worries me about that is, will Tryon beat Manchester, Mount Zion beat Tryon, and Manchester beat Mount Zion? So it's a circle. It's a circle. They've all beaten each other. And so that's what's concerning. That would be a 3-way tie. So for Mount Zion, they're really hoping that Bowden can beat Tryon, and they're really hoping that Greenville can somehow pull an upset on Manchester. But Mount Zion, you shot yourself in the foot. You should have had that game won against Manchester, and anything. Obviously, they're going to want that 2 seed because you want to host first round. You do not want to go on the road first round, especially when you're on a 2-game losing streak like you are for Mount Zion. And they haven't done well on the road this season, not as well as they have at home. But for Mount Zion, obviously shot yourself in the foot. Now you just got to deal with the consequences. But again, they're going to be hoping that Greenville gets the win here. They're going to be hoping that Bowden can get the win on Friday. But yeah, Manchester, obviously, like I said, just kind of rounding this one out. Manchester definitely, I don't know if they did well or if Mount Zion didn't do good. But Mount Zion, to be honest with you, did how I thought they would have done offensively. Defensively, didn't do as well. And that's a bummer.
Wow. What's so interesting about this is that you had them winning this game.
Yeah.
But you had this next game, Temple losing to Darlington, and it ended up being the other way around.
Well, I'm glad I was wrong about this one. Obviously, don't want to be wrong about Mount Zion winning, but I'm glad I'm wrong about this one. And really, the only reason I didn't have Temple winning this game is because they were on the road and they were on a 4-game losing streak. Temple, I had Darlington winning this one 30-27, so by 3 points, got the margin perfect. Was 3 points. It was a lot more high scoring than I had expected though, and Temple obviously won. I didn't think they were going to win this one. Darlington does lead the all-time series 3-2. Temple, though, they've won the past 2 meetings this year and last year, so Temple kind of closing the gap on the all-time series here. Big win, though. Big win for them on Friday. This is their first win in their region. They're now 1-4 in region play. They're 5-4 overall. Ends a 4-game losing streak for Temple. So this was a very, very big game for them. Obviously, they brought some dynamite into this game, snuck past Darlington in a nail biter. And they got the win last year against Darlington. Obviously, it was not close at all. But I'm glad to see Temple got the win here. Great momentum booster for Darlington. Obviously, they've lost 5 of their last 6 games, and they're now 3-6 on the year. And Darlington, they're going to be playing Bremen, like I mentioned earlier. Temple, they're going to be taking on Model. And if you're Temple, that's great news. You're taking on the worst team in your region, and you're coming off of a win. Obviously, the very familiar team is Model to Temple. Darlington, again, taking on Bremen. But for Temple, you're trying to make the playoffs here. If they are going to make the playoffs, as of right now, they're just barely skating in. So obviously, playing Model is very good for you because then hopefully you can end up 6-4, 2-4 in your region, and maybe just slide right into the playoffs. But Temple, great win here. I'm very, very proud of them.
And then we wrap it all up with the Villa Rica Wildcats taking on Kennesaw Mountain Mustangs, I think, on the road, right?
Yes, that's correct. It's actually their last road game of the year for the regular season, at least, because as of right now, they are going to make the playoffs, and whether they beat East Paulding on Thursday, actually, it doesn't matter. They're going to be hitting the road for the first round of the playoffs if they get in, which they should be getting in. But I had this one a lot closer. I had it being a 10-point game. Villa Rica blew them out the water. This is another team. We had Bowden do it, and now we had Villa Rica do it. This is their season high score offensively, putting up 56 points. Still gave up 35, which is a little disappointing because it still was somewhat of a closer game. It was still a 21-point game here, and I had it by 10, so it wasn't as close as I thought it was going to be, but still giving up 35 points. You would have liked to see that not so high, but, don't want to poop on their parade. VR, obviously, they're now 4-5 on the season. That's great news. I didn't have any doubts that they were going to win this game against Kennesaw Mountain. Kennesaw Mountain, they've lost now 5 of their last 6 games. That they're now 2-7 on the year. For Villa Rica, obviously for them now, they're going to be looking ahead to East Paulding because that is a game for them that they got to win. And it's not necessarily that they got to win it to get in the playoffs because if they lose that game, they'll probably still get in as the 4 seed. But that means you have to go on the road to take on Langston Hughes first round. Nobody wants to do that. In my opinion, Langston Hughes is the number 1 team in 5A. Nobody wants to go play in Langston Hughes first round. That's a death sentence, and it's just no fun. So for Villa Rica, really on Thursday, they're going to try and they need to beat East Paulding. Obviously, it's going to be, I think, their senior night. And good news, it's at home. So you have East Paulding at home. All you got to do is beat East Paulding, and you get the 3 seed, and you no longer have to go on the road to Langston Hughes. And that's if if I'm not incorrect, I might be incorrect on that one, but the last time I checked, that's the way it's going to be shaken out. But for Villa Rica, that's going to be tough. East Paulding, they scored 31 points in each of their last 4 games. Kennesaw Mountain, they're going to be taking on their region champions down there, Rome. The Wolves looking for their 8th straight win. Hopefully, Kennesaw Mountain doesn't give up too easily to them. I don't think they're going to be able to pull out the win there against Rome. But Villa Rica, again, they're most likely going to make the playoffs. Thursday's a very big game for them as it decides whether they're the 3 or the 4 seed. Again, they're going to want to be the 3 seed because you don't want to play Langston Hughes first round. But in this game, Villa Rica doing an outstanding job. I heard Emmanuel Ajayi did really well running the ball. But unfortunately, your defense still gave up 5 touchdowns, and that's concerning. But good thing is you have a week to prepare for East Paulding. Then you play East Paulding. Hopefully you get better from that game. And then you have a week, and then you have the playoffs. So Villa Rica, season's not over yet, not by any stretch of the imagination. Have a lot of time to still improve. Hopefully they can sneak out a win against East Paulding, but a very good win here against Kennesaw Mountain and actually exceeded my expectations.
All right, and don't forget to tune in on Thursdays for Mason's weekly pregame analysis, predictions, and more. November 3rd, as a reminder, we'll have our state playoff live recording and Team Spirit Night at Buffalo Wild Wings here in Carrollton, 6:30 to 8. Invite a friend, wear your fan wear. We'll be giving away a gift card as well, so you want to come out and make sure you're there to participate in that. So until that time, we'll see everybody on Thursday.